You bring me home. Home. You bring me home. Home.
So once again, when John was asked, "Who are you?" not only did he respond by saying, "I'm Isaiah chapter 40 verse 3, which has a direct connection to the Qumran, but he says, "I am the friend of the bridegroom." So what does he mean when he says, "I am the friend of the bridegroom"? So in a biblical wedding, there's going to be two witnesses.
Well, that's based on Deuteronomy and the Volume. It says, that all truth is confirmed through 2 or 3 witnesses.
Right. So,
yeah.
But a biblical wedding will have 2 witnesses, and they are called culturally. They're called the friends of the bridegroom.
Okay.
And they're personified by Moses and Elijah. Moses personifies the Torah. Elijah personifies the prophets. So the 2 witnesses of the wedding was the Torah and the prophets. So let's look at the example of the first witness, and that is Moses. So in Exodus chapter 19 verse 17, it says, Moses brought the people out of the camp to meet with God, and they stood at the foot of the mountain. In the Hebrew it says they stood underneath the mountain.
The mountain was like shaking. It was above them like a chuppah.
Right. So Jeremiah chapter 2 verse 2 describes for us that there is a marriage that took place at Mount Sinai. Yeshua is the bridegroom. His people that he brought out of Egypt, the house of Jacob, is his bride. And so she was instructed, make yourself ready, and then I'll meet with you on the 3rd day. And so in the preparation for getting ready, once she does get ready, Moses is going to escort the bride, going to escort the house of Jacob to the foot of the mountain. And the imagery is Mount Sinai is seen and likened to a chuppah or a wedding canopy. So Moses is the friend of the bridegroom. He's escorting Israel, the bride, to get married underneath the chuppah. So that's our first example. Our second example is John the Baptist. When he said, I am the friend of the bridegroom, he is personifying himself as representing Elijah. So the Elijah ministry and message is going to escort the bride of Messiah in the end of days, and when he's coming at his second coming to return for his bride, that Elijah is going to escort the bride of Messiah to get married to him. John the Baptist, representing the ministry of Elijah, the bride of Messiah is being escorted with the message of Isaiah chapter 40, verse 3, which is the message of the founding of the Qumran. So putting it together, the Qumran and receiving the message of the Qumran community is the message by which the bride of Yeshua is being escorted to be married to him. In Jeremiah chapter 2, verse 2 is where we can see that there was indeed a marriage that took place at Mount Sinai. So it says, "Go and cry in the hearing of Jerusalem, saying, Thus says the Lord, I remember you, the kindness of your youth, the love of your betrothal." Now, there's two primary steps in a biblical wedding. The first is betrothal, where you're legally married to, but you do not physically dwell with. And then the second stage of the marriage is when you physically dwell with. So the first stage of the marriage, betrothal, is associated and linked with Mount Sinai. And the second stage of the marriage is associated with Mount Zion. So Moses is associated with Mount Sinai, and Elijah is associated with Mount Zion. The marriage offer in Exodus 19, verse 5, it says, "If you obey my voice and keep my covenant." In other words, if you will follow the Torah. So the marriage offer that was made to the house of Jacob at Mount Sinai is, "Will you follow the Torah?" And she replied by saying, "All that the Lord has spoken, we will do." So therefore, there was a marriage that took place at Mount Sinai, and in Exodus chapter 19, verse 17, it is Moses, being a friend of the bridegroom, who is escorting the bride to get married to her bridegroom, which is Yeshua the Messiah.
This is really interesting, this idea of the marriage and the love of your betrothal. There's something that I know in Judaism, at least in the rabbinic circles, but every morning when we would wrap a tefillin, the straps around the arm, every Jew says this very thing from Hosea chapter 2, verses 19 and 20, if you're following along. "I will betroth you to me forever. Yes, I will betroth you to me in righteousness." That's the idea of the Tzadok or Tzaddik, whether you're using a noun, a verb, or an adjective. The idea is related to that imagery of the priesthood. That's that concept of Tzadok. It's the priesthood concept. So here it says, "I'm going to betroth you to me," in that priesthood concept, and also in justice. And then it says,
and that's mishpat.
Mishpat, that's correct. And then the next word is, "and in loving kindness and in compassion." The word loving kindness actually should be better translated from the Hebrew as loyalty. It's coming from the word chesed in the Dead Sea Scrolls. When the Pharisees are mentioned, they're mentioned as Hasidim, coming from chesed, meaning loyalty. Someone who is loyal, very loyal, of which Jehovah is loyal to us. We remain loyal to him, loyal to the marriage covenant. But when they say, "What Jehovah has spoken, we will do," here in Exodus, when they say, "Na'aseh v'nishma," what you say, we'll do and we'll hear. They broke that covenant. They broke it. But here in 19 and 20 of Hosea 2, "I will betroth you to me forever. I'll betroth you to me in that priesthood concept and in justice, in loyalty and in compassion. And I will betroth you to me in faithfulness, and you will know Yud-Heh-Vav. You'll know him."
The message to the heart of Yeshua's bride is Isaiah chapter 40, verse 3.
Wow.
And Isaiah chapter 40, verse 3 is all about the Qumran. Isaiah chapter 40, verse 3, John the Baptist says, "I'm Isaiah chapter 40, verse 3. John the Baptist came in the spirit and the power of Elijah. Luke chapter 1, verse 17. So in other words, the Elijah message, and John is a friend of the bridegroom, And Elijah is a friend of the bridegroom. And so the bride of Yeshua is being escorted to be married to him. And what is escorting her is Isaiah chapter 40 verse 3. The positive is to plead with someone, to implore with them. Remember how you said we had this heart-to-heart conversation? And so it's having this heart-to-heart conversation, and it's very emotional. It's very connecting to the heart. It's words speaking with great conviction.
If you look in the book of Genesis, Bereshit, chapter 3, verse 9 and 10, or actually specifically verse 9, or it starts in 8. They heard the sound of Yud-Heh-Vav Elohim walking in the garden in the cool of the day, okay? And the man and his wife hid themselves from the presence of Yud-Heh-Vav Elohim among the trees of the garden, okay? Now look at verse 9. Then Yehovah Elohim called to the man and said to him, this is after the sin. The Hebrew is remarkable. The word is ayecha. Ayecha. It's the word that is used in Jeremiah's language, in the book of Yirmiyahu, for lamentation. Like the book of Lamentations, that's ayecha. Same word.
That Yod-Heh-Vav is pleading to his bride is to embrace the Zadok priesthood, to embrace the priestly calendar, to embrace the message of the Qumran, to study and understand the message of the Qumran. So the pleading that's taking place unto Yeshua's bride is the message of the Qumran. So this is how serious and important understanding the Dead Sea Scrolls and the Qumran is because that's the message by which Yod-Heh-Vav is pleading to his bride. So it goes on to say in Isaiah 40 verse 3, a voice of him that cries in the desert, a highway for our God. And so this highway or this path is a road. And the road to be married to Yeshua, and the marriage takes place in Jerusalem, it goes through the Qumran.
Wow, yeah.
The road to the marriage with Yeshua goes through the Qumran. So the bride has to hear the message of the Qumran, hear the message of the Dead Sea Scrolls, hear the message of restoring the Zadok priesthood, hear the message of following the priestly calendar, coming out of the mixed worship system, hear the message to make herself clean, to be ready for the marriage. And also, we're not going to cover this, but the Qumran is where we have our Jewish roots in Yeshua. The very first Jewish believers in Yeshua, as outlined in Acts chapter 2, those 3,000 believers were primarily linked and associated and affiliated with the Qumran, and they being the first Jewish believers, they became the roots of faith in Yeshua, what we call the body of Messiah today. And so this message of the Qumran is linked with the calling of Yeshua's bride.
This is really amazing because, as you say, if you want to go to Jerusalem and eventually to Jerusalem above, to the temple that is above, you're going to have to go through this idea, this concept, this teaching that emanated out of Qumran.
Exactly.
And if you don't go that path, you won't have the highway to Jerusalem.
That's exactly right. So this is a very important and serious message because Isaiah chapter 40 verse 3 is the message of John the Baptist. He was prophesied. Look in Luke chapter 1 verse 17. At his birth, he will go before him in the spirit and the power of Elijah to turn the hearts of the fathers to the children.
Wow.
Okay, so that is Malachi chapter 4 verse 6. So the Elijah message is Malachi chapter 4 verse 6. And the disobedient to the wisdom of the just. And so Who's the wisdom of the just? Well, we learn of that wisdom in the Qumran, but then it goes on to say, to make ready a people prepared for the Lord. That is a reference to Isaiah chapter 40, verse 3. So the Elijah message is Isaiah chapter 40, verse 3.
Do you think most people understand that message of Elijah in this particular way?
I am 60 years of age, and I started going to church when I was about 5. And I've been following Christian teachings my whole life, so over 50 years. I have never heard anybody in Christianity give a message about John the Baptist, him being in the spirit and the power of Elijah, and that Isaiah chapter 40 verse 3 is connected and associated to the Qumran. I've never heard it.
And with Eliyahu or Elijah and his message.
Exactly.
Just you never heard it.
No.
I can't say that I've ever heard that. I mean, that's just not something that I remember ever coming across.
Well, without understanding how the Qumran community got started and the history behind it and what caused the Zadok priest to have a community in the Qumran, without knowing that in the Dead Sea Scrolls it says that their community was founded on Isaiah chapter 40 verse 3, you have no way of making the connection. It's only in the Qumran can you make that connection.
Can you feel my love? Oh, 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 oh. I will always be by your side. Can you feel my love? Oh, oh.